So how do you plan a world trip? Where do you start? What do you do first? Okay, I'll explain what I did in the upcoming video, and I'll do a bit on laptop as well, if I can know how to work that out. But I think I might go and have a shave first. See you in a bit. You know, it's so much easier if I press bleeding record. I've been whittering on about for the last 20 minutes and I haven't frigging pressed record, have I? Dick. YouTube. Right, this video's about planning. Where do you start? You start at the beginning. Backstory is I started planning this trip about 5 years ago. It doesn't take that long at all. I haven't done much of nothing for the last 4 years and 9 months. But my planning, some things you got to plan well in advance. So I shall start now, and I have press record this time. Planning, basically you do section at a time. So I put my sections into like 12 months. So the first 12 months I will be shipping to Canada, and then to Alaska, America, and then down into Baja, Mexico, and Mexico. That's roughly my first year. So I've planned for that, and then when I start the trip and I start going on the trip, I'll be planning for the next year. So because obviously I'm gonna have a bit more time sitting in Land Rover freezing me nuts off, or whatever. So hopefully, we'll see, because there's some points I can actually just fly home and have a rest, have a holiday when I'm on a holiday. Reset my visa, go back to America. So I might even go to America for 6 months and then fly home and then fly back into America for another 6 months and spend more time there. So you just don't know what's going to happen. So basically it's planning for 12 months in advance. So, which I'm glad I did with the visas, because obviously you need the Canadian visa for the first time, for the first 12 months. So I need the Canadian visa and the American visa. Now luckily I started the American visa well in advance. I was lucky in some respects because my passport was due to run out in February of last year, was it? I think it was February of last year. So my passport was due to run out, so luckily I had the option to get a new passport, which I did, and I got the thicker one with the more pages in. So I had the full 10 years passport with the 50 pages in, or whatever it is. So you've got to have 6 months left on your passport. So if you're going away for 9 months and you've only 12 months left on your passport, you're going to have a problem. So there's that planning to do. Right, for each country as well, that every country, majority of them except in Europe, they have their own currency. So you've got to have access to their currency, be it with your bank card or whatever. But if you're going between countries back and forward, generally it's okay. But if you need that currency on the card, yeah, that's fine. Not everywhere takes cards, and you could get stuck at a border or wherever if you've not got no cash. I always, every single time when I travel through Africa and everywhere, I always had cash of the currency that I was coming out of, the currency of the country I was coming out of, and then the currency of the country I was going into. So I could use it at the border. You can usually pay both. You can usually use one or the other, or both sometimes. So that works out pretty good. So I like doing that, and I'll carry on doing that, especially South America. So you've got to realise what side of the road that they drive on. Sometimes it's not always obvious. Africa, you can drive, I know I'm not going to Africa right now, but you can drive on the left side of the road. and over to the right side of the road. I think Namibia, South Africa, Namibia and Botswana drive on the English side of the road, and then some other countries, Angola, I think Angola drive on the opposite side of the road. So you've got to know this before you go. Just if you're driving like me, you've got to know these things, and that's part of the planning. So that's part of this video. Local customs and local holidays. You could be going to a certain area, thinking, all right, I'll be fine. The supermarkets will be open. I'll be able to get this. Majority of the time, it probably will be, but some of the back places, it might not be, because it's a bank holiday weekend, and if you've got no food, you've got no fuel, you're struggling, you're going to be stuck maybe 2-3 days. Probably not. But some of the places further South America, you might be stuck. So it's worth planning that in advance as well. Just being prepared, I suppose. Good Boy Scout. Some areas as well, not so much in males, but more in females, is dress code. In South like Saudi Arabia, you've got women have got to cover the skin up. They've got to have dress codes for women, and you can't do things because you can get arrested. So it's things that you've got to look at as well. It's most that people don't think of that. Oh, it's because I'm a Westerner, and you think you're Westerner, and it's completely different. But you've got to check these things. It takes a couple of minutes on Google or whatever to check. So look out for that. In some areas as well, there's camping regulations, so you've got to check camping regulations in the place that you're going. If you're camping, if you're hoteling it, you've got to book a hotel. But camping regulations, you've got to look at the camping regulations. Some of the places in America, the parks, you can camp in the parks, but you've got to give prior notice, and they've got to have space for you to camp. You can't just stop at the side of the road and go into a park. BLM land you can, I think, but I've wrote it down, but I've forgotten because of 50 billion things to do all at the last minute, because that's planning for you. Right, these also border procedures. Border procedures, you've got to, if you're in a country, you've got to sign out of that country before you can sign into the next country. Signing out is pretty easy anyway, but signing back in, you've got to go through customs. It's even like signing out, you've got to go through customs. You've got to do like usually 3 different things that you've got to do to sign in or out of a country. So you've got to find out that, and a good source of that as well is iOverlander, because you use iOverlander, and people that usually puts up on that have just gone through, within the next few months. So things change, and you've got to find buildings. Then you need paperwork, a lot in Africa really. But you've got to get paperwork, and you've got to get the things to sort out. So you've got to do planning with that as well. Shipping and cost. So I'm starting off in Canada, so I've got to sort shipping out, because I'm shipping my Land Rover. Now you can go container, or you can go what's called Ro-Ro, which is they drive it on and then drive it off. Ro-Ro's pretty safe in, there's a lot of shipping ports where it's pretty safe. You can leave stuff, hugely alright, but there is a lot of ports where it's not. So a lot of places go container, and at the minute we're in February 2023, so the containers prices has gone through the roof. It's just starting to tail off now and start to come back down. Containers better, it's dearer, but it's better if you want to leave items in the vehicle. You can fence it off. Technically you're not supposed to do, but people do, and not that I'll be doing that myself. But you can, I shouldn't say that really, should I? You can
do it with container, which it's more money. I'll just make sure it's still recording. It's more money, but it's safer. And I'll be using IVSS, Martin IVSS. So he knows what he's doing. He's an overlander himself, so he will be mediating with me. So that's all booked on for the 2nd of April. That's when it goes. Yeah, and the cost of shipping, it's not cheap. Not cheap at all. But it is getting cheaper with the containers. Also, you've got to think about weather. If you go into an area where there's bad thunderstorms, or you go when it's tornado time and you're camping and it's peeing it down and rain's going sideways, just like Scotland or just like England, it's most of the year round. You're not going to have a fun time. So you need to sort out what time you want to go to that particular area, and if you actually time it right, you can travel the whole world in, which hopefully I am might do that. I don't know. I've tried to do that. Is actually plan it so you're in that country when that country is good weather. It's either getting up towards good weather or it's getting up towards it's not too hot and not too cold. So you can actually travel the world in roughly the same temperature throughout the world if you time it right, and if you don't travel too fast or too slow. So that's what I'm attempting to do. Whether it'll work, knowing my luck, no chance. Right, visas. I will actually do a different video on visas. The Canadian visa was very simple. The American visa, it took a long time. I was a bit of a naughty boy when I was younger, and I borrowed a couple of push bikes, and it kind of screwed my American visa up, but that's all sorted now, so I've got my American visa. I will do another video on that, because of the mistakes that I made, and the mistakes that I made cost another 3 months for doing the visa. Luckily I started it 12 months in advance. South America, I can't remember what it is with the Mexican one. I think you can get the Mexican at the border. Most of South America you can get the visas at the border, and because I have a British passport, you get 90 days anyway, so you can work it out. Most places you can get 90 days, so I've got a pretty good passport for that. So some of the countries I'm not going to be in there for 90 days. So, and as well with every country that you go into, they all want their own separate requirements. Do they need this paperwork? Do they need that paperwork? And there's a lot of paperwork to sort out. A lot of the African countries are really bad for that. But you've got to look for every country going. You've got to do. Usually I do is look on the government website, our government website, the British.org, whatever it is. Look on their website, and then they'll tell you what it needs to do for that country, which is, it's okay-ish, but it takes the point that you're flying in. When you're doing a land border is different to a when you're flying in. It's a different procedure and different. You can still get the visas, but it's kind of different. Like on Facebook, you get there's a lot of places on Facebook where but there's places on, you can put a shout on. There's ones that's Overland Journal. I think there's a lot of overland ones. I think Martin from IBSS, he runs one as well, and you could go onto them, and people that actually do the borders and do that, and then you can find out with them. So the requirements for the vehicle, because the vehicle needs requirements to get into that country as well. Whether North America's okay, a lot of Africa and Australia, you need a carnet de passage, which is like a passport for the vehicle, and it just proves that you're taking that vehicle out. So you pay a bond with whatever company you get the passage off. So last time I got one was a German company. I don't think I think we can get them in England now. But anyway, you get it from a German company, and so I left a deposit with that German company. So when I got the vehicle de passage, I went into Africa, so I stamped it in, and then when I leave the country I stamp it out, and when I finish with the trip I send it back off to the German company and they send me my deposit back. So it just means that I'm shipping the motor, temporarily importing the vehicle and exporting it as well, so I don't lose my bond, and that's what it's about really. I don't think North and South America you don't need that. I think there's only Africa, a lot of places in Africa. Yeah, I could have got away with it in South Africa, but there's a lot of places in Africa where you need it. Australia. I don't know if you need it in Japan. I think you might need it in Japan. I don't know. But that's when I'm planning more for when I'm travelling and I'm planning more, I can sort that out. Insurance. You need insurance for yourself and then probably for your vehicle as well. South America, the insurance you can get on the borders. A lot of Africa you can get in the border. I didn't bother with it in Africa. But the America and Canada can be hard because it depends what vehicle you are, because you've got to decide what vehicle you want to take. And me being a Defender man, so I took my Defender, and Defenders aren't sold in America. Well, there was 500 of them, but aren't sold in America. So in getting insurance for that, mainline insurance companies don't know if a Defender. They don't know what a Defender. Americans don't know what Defenders are. So that might problems. You've got to decide what vehicle that you're going to take. Then you've got to prepare that vehicle and make sure it's going to live. And you've got to decide what vehicle parts you're going to take, because if the vehicle doesn't belong in America, like mine, it doesn't belong, so I've got to set parts that if it breaks I can mend it. So that's another thing that you've got to do planning as well. And then the vehicle insurance, there's actually a Mexican insurance that will insure you for America and Canada. Sergio Gringo insurance, so hopefully. I know a few YouTubers have used that, so I'll be going into that as well. And as well, how are you staying? Are you camping? Are you camping in a ground tent or a roof tent or a camper conversion or a van? You've got to think about all this as well. What you're going to do. Can you camp in a tent? Can you just stop outside at road and stick a tent up? So that's another thing. Also, one of the biggest things that you can't really plan for it too much, but the planning, you can only plan for so much. But you've got to be flexible with travelling long term. You've got to be flexible. Things will happen. You might have a breakdown. You might have to stay there for a couple of weeks, a month, waiting for parts, whatever. You've got to be flexible. You can't do it too much to a time limit, because things will happen and then you get so far behind and then you do more stressing because you're so far behind. What I learned in Africa was, if something happens, you go, yeah, well, just sort it out and just carry on what you're doing. And that's kind of the African way, and that's stuff I like that way. It's just, yeah, we'll just sort it out, don't worry about it. You just make it up as you go along. And a lot of it, you make it up as you go along, because things change. You might meet a nice guy, a lady, whatever. You might meet a couple. Oh yeah, come and stay at our ranch for a week or two, and have a bit of a rest, because you need a rest. I know you're travelling all the time and you've lots of leisure, but you need a rest. You've got to have a break, an Airbnb for a week, and this is what I'll be doing, like once a month, just staying at an Airbnb for a couple of days, having a bit of a rest and a light, whatever. So that sort of thing that needs planning as well. Right, your health as well. You need to obviously take care of your health. And if you have an underlying issue, you need to make sure that you've got medicine for a certain amount of time, and can you get medicine in that country where you're going to be. Some places you might not be able to get it. Are you going to be able to ship it in from your country in, or do you have to fly out? So that's all, you know, needs to get sorted out. And as well, certain areas you need certain injections, like yellow fever, Hep A, Hep B, I think it is. Yeah, you know, yellow fever, Hep A, Hep B, maybe you know, there's things like that, and you can do that. That needs planning before you go. North America, Canada is pretty alright. You know, there's like malaria. Africa got a lot of malaria, so you've got to plan that in advance as well. So that's all part of the planning. But you know, the first, you can't do it all in one go, because if you're travelling for so long, so things might change within a year. You know, some of the injections you might not, but you've got to sort that out. So there's some times when if you do a world trip, that you've got to come home and do visas for the next couple of countries from your own country. So there's that to think about. And then there's another thing, is different foods. I'm celiac, so I'm allergic to anything with malt, wheat or barley, and I don't eat meat. But I might eat a bit of bacon, but shh, don't tell anybody. So I'm allergic to that. And then with different countries, different languages, I've got to do the planning for what food can I get in that country. Can I get gluten-free food in that country? Probably not. America and Canada, I'm pretty much sure that. Mexico, maybe less, but South America, I'm going to have to eat meat. I know I'm going to have to eat meat as well as bacon, but I know I'm going to have to do, so you know, I'm just going to do it. So there's things like that. A lot of fruit. Yeah, fruit's okay, but you can still get a lot of dicky tummies with fruit because it's not washed properly. You've got to wash it yourself properly and all that sort of stuff. I find a lot of places where I live in Hebden Bridge, you can see in there, but I put little love hearts or little places, little markers, as you'll see in this video that you're probably watching now. These little markers here, all over the place, it's places where I want to visit, places where I visited, or things of noticeable interest. A lot of them are castles, funny enough, because I do like castles. That's a particular nice castle there. But anyhow, yeah. So I do that, and I do that all over the world. So if I'm watching something like abandoned engineering, which there was in Czech Republic, but I don't know what's happened to that. Some of them I do, and I put them on my sat nav. But there's different things that I find. On different things, like the Ocean Road in Norway, on Nordkapp. But there's things that I find, and then I'll go onto Google Maps, find it on Google Maps, and then put a little marker on it. And then you carry on doing that, so I know where it is. And then, so what happens is, the more that you put in, like the Titanic gravesite there in Nova Scotia, I've really been to Titanic. So you put them in, and then you'll see them all dotted up, and then eventually it'll actually make a bit of a route up for you. You can see, oh well, you can go there, round there, up round there, and then drop into America, and then drop down to New York, and then do that, and then go down to Atlanta, and then across America, and there's loads over there, and so it makes sort of a route up for you. A lot around here, and as I know, San Francisco, San Jose, like the Air Castle Museum. There's one of my subscribers on YouTube. he lives in that area, and he says, "Go, come and visit that," because I made a video on the B-29 Flying Fox that crashed not too far away from me, and they have a B-29. Oh, come and look at this. And they've actually got a historic park, a railway town museum, and they've got the train that was in Back to the Future. So basically what I'm whittering on about is all these places, and you can make a bit of a route up and go across, and then you'll see it goes back up into Canada, and then across Canada, and then up to a tuk-tuk, and then back down to Yukon, and over to Alaska. So it's part of the planning that you go, and then you see that, you mark it down, and then you just basically make the route so you can fit all them in, going up or coming down. And then some in Mexico and Baja. There's one in Baja there that you do swim with whales. Like you go on a boat with wild whales. So that'd be interesting. I'm looking forward for that. But yeah, so there's places like that. I've not done South America. There's some, the big places that I want to go to in South America where you see the route going down to Tierra del Fuego. And then I'll come back into Brazil and around that area. But basically, and that sort of makes you plan. I haven't sorted Africa out yet, but there's some going across America, to Mongolia and across. But when I'm travelling and I've got an hour and I'm sitting there at Land Rover and it's cold or whatever, I can do a bit more planning for the next country or the next area. But I also, what I'm going to do is, when I'm round this area, which I have started, I've got a few, and there's the place up here, which I think it's that one, which is a covered it's a covered bridge, and it's the longest covered bridge in the world. So I'll find, when I've got time and that, because obviously I'm still working, I'll find things, and I'll search the local area for what things there is to do. So that will be doing that. So hopefully you were still awake, and I didn't bore you too much on this little vlog that wasn't so little, and I've been whittering on for the probably best part 2 hours, maybe. But the first half hour of it, no, not 2 hours, an hour and a half, an hour or something. But the first half of it, I didn't press record. Like a numpty. So I had to do it all again. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I will do some more videos. Remember the next video, I might even do it tomorrow or the day after, is a bit about vehicle prep. Lance wanted one especially on that, but I didn't film that much. I filmed a little bit, but I didn't film too much because the weather was bad. I did it at the wrong time, and I don't have undercover. I have a big tent, but it won't fit, so I couldn't fit that in. So I had to do it in between, a couple of hours here, a couple of hours there, and by the time it takes the camera out to get out and mess about, it just wasn't worth it. I did a bit on my phone the other day when I did the timing belt, which is just what I did, and that's why you do maintenance like that. So that'll be another bit of a video, and obviously the visa video about the American visa, that'll be upcoming as well, because I was a bit of a naughty boy. I think I mentioned it. I was a bit of a naughty boy. I borrowed a couple of push bikes and when I was 14, and that kind of knackered my visa up. So luckily I started that in plenty of time, and then there'll be some more videos which I can't remember. I did write it down, and as well there'll be a video of when I resigned from work. I'm looking forward for that one. So looking forward. I resigned from work after 26. Well, it was actually, I'm going to do it on the very day that I started, but 26 years before. So the very day I will be doing handing me notice in at work. I want to film that. They maybe not like that, but tough. and then I'm going to do last day at work. It's just be a quick video of just because I drive a bus for a living. I'm not going to say what company yet because I still work for them, so I've got to be careful. But it's not the second company. It's that anyway. So I'll do that, and then I am going back to Normandy, the war ones where I did the beaches at Normandy. I have quite a few requests to go and to do some other beaches, so I'm going to go back and do a Pegasus Bridge, which I didn't really. I actually drove across Pegasus Bridge on the 6th of the 6th last year, and I never realised. So I'm going to go a video on Pegasus Bridge, and then there's a big bunker on Sword Beach. Make sure I'm still recording. A big bunker on Sword Beach, so I want to go and have a video of that. And then go up to Juno Beach. That's where the Canadians was, and I've got a couple of requests from Canadians that it'd be nice for them to, so I can go and have a look at that. I'm going to go back to the American Cemetery. There's some graves I want to find for people that I'm going to send a message to with them, their loved ones, and then obviously they've never been able to get over there. So, if somebody's there and they want me to find the graves for them, I'll try and do that for them and video it and then send them that over email or whatever, or put it on YouTube. And then over to Omaha Beach. Now, Omaha Beach, I've been to Omaha Beach and I found a rock with a hole in it, and I thought it was bullet hole. Maybe a lot of people did. But I wish I brought that rock back, but I'm going to see if I can find that rock. I don't think it is bullet hole, but that's what I put in the description. But I never put that in the description, but that, you know what I mean. So I'm going to try and find that rock, just purely that I should have brought it back with me anyway, because my neighbour wanted it. And then up to Omaha, Utah Beach. So I'm going to go up to Utah Beach. And some of the other videos that I made at Bastogne, a lot of the people, 101st Airborne flew into the back of Utah Beach, and that's where they started. They've got these plinths, and the mile markers, or the kilometre mile, and every kilometre there's one of these markers, and I've got to the last one at Bastogne, and I filmed that at the museum at Bastogne, and the very first one is on the beach it's in a village, but there's one on the beach at Utah Beach, so I want to go and film that, and then around Utah, because there's a lot of bunkers on Utah Beach, so I'm going to go and film all that because I like that sort of stuff, and them sort of stuff seem really popular. And then into, obviously because I'm going to America as well, and the village where the 101st Airborne was, I've a lot to do around that, so I'm going to try and do that. It's a bit of a shakedown trip before I send the motor to America, and then I'm going to see my daughter in Germany and visit some friends, and then come home and put it in a ship it, basically put it in a ship and then ship it to America, and then away you go. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and we will see you in the next one, hopefully. So please like, subscribe, share, and all that YouTube crap that everybody said all the time. So okay, we'll catch you later. Bye bye. Toodle pips.